Josh and Frankie. What a couple of dumb shits.
Hello, Primates! You found Primus Tracks. Congratulations! There are many places to find us other than this podcast at Primus Tracks on Instagram and Threads. PrimusTracksPod@gmail.com is the email address. And of course, there is a Facebook page, and it is titled Primus Tracks. I am Josh. Right over there, 39th floor, Primus Tracks Towers. Frankie Berestein joining us.
Hey, Josh.
Got to be a lot of buzzards circling around up there. 39 stories in the air, Frankie.
Indeed.
Frankie sits and watches them and plots. Just plots. We are happy to have him back. We haven't talked to him in quite some time, and it's been far too long. Here to model some bass today and to play through the much revered, by some, envelope filter. Louis Ortega, welcome back to Primus Tracks.
Hey.
Nice flair there, buddy. It is the third track from the Les Claypool Frog Brigade release from 2002, titled Purple Onion. Buzzards of Green Hill. Louis, now you agreed to join us to talk about this track. What attracts you to it, other than trying to impress Frankie with your envelope filter?
Well, I mean, it's no easy task to please Frankie with any envelope filter, but one must do what one can. With this particular song, I'm very fond of, because I believe it came out at that point in time, I was wondering what's going on with Les Claypool and what happened with Primus, and then so this was like the first bit of music that I heard. I mean, on my end, I didn't hear anything further from him after Antipop. So when I saw this music video come out and I heard his take on solo songwriting, it was fascinating, and what he put together musically was just so unique. It was, I mean, even to this day, I mean, it still sounds just as fresh and vibrant as it did when it first came out. I mean, it's such a unique track, and it has a vibe, and it grooves, and the whole song is kind of like a definite listening trip, or it's really easy to fall into groove wise and pocket wise. So it stuck out to me, and I liked it. It was the first solo Les Claypool song that I had heard that I enjoyed.
Oh, very nice. And they must have posted the music video to the website. Is that what you had seen?
Yeah, I was trying to recall if they had a little bit of the behind the scenes, and but yeah, it was on the website at the time.
This was kind of your introduction to Les Claypool's solo efforts. That's pretty cool.
Just kept you wondering what's he going to do next musically. So definitely kept my interest.
This one certainly has its own personality, separate from Primus. So I'm glad you brought that up. Frankie, how about you? Because you have so boldly stated that this is your favorite track on Purple Onion. Do you want to make any more proclamations today about Buzzards of Green Hill?
It is my favorite track on Purple Onion, and I think the studio cut is fantastic. But what really gave me a wider perspective about the song is when I started to discover all of the live performances. Because when they play this song live, they take it to a whole different level. You always get this completely different groove in the chorus. And then there's always the reprise of the track, right? After everyone thinks it's done. So all of those things combined made me appreciate the song even more. Here's a little bit of trivia for you, Josh.
Ooh.
Are you aware of how Buzzards of Green Hill is connected to another song from the Fungi and Foe record?
You have found my weak link, Frankie, which is the Fungi record. I don't know those tracks very well, having only listened to that record a handful of times. Maybe, actually, probably twice. But the subject matter of this tune, given the lyrics, I would connect it to Old Roscoe.
Exactly.
Yes!
So even though the names are different, because on Buzzards of Green Hill, Les says John Donovan was drinking late, took his car keys and taunted fate, crashed a mother and her son called Death, even though the character has a different name. That's pretty much what happens in Old Roscoe. For the driver of the cruiser, she may not survive. and she's the mother of three. Two for sure. The one in her belly had to be taken premature because the guy was driving and drinking. Same story, right?
Essentially, yeah, from what I can glean. So there is a connection there, huh? I can get behind that, especially because I got it correct on a blind guess. This one, by the way, is, once again, the third track. It checks in at 4 minutes and 6 seconds, and quite a lineup on this track, you guys. Of course, we have Les on bass and vocals. We have Mike Dillon on tabla and pandero. We also have Enor on backing vocals, tambourine, and jaw harp. Skerrick on baritone sax this time. The great Warren Haynes on guitar, playing that sweet slide guitar.
An incredible performance by Warren Haynes. Really out of this world.
Now, Frankie, I know you have a live history, so I'm going to sit back, relax, and enjoy it.
Quite an extensive live history. Buzzards of Green Hill was premiered at the Crest Theater in Sacramento on October 8th, 2002. And it was performed regularly throughout that year. Now, the thing about these 2002 performances and what sets them apart from the way that it began to be performed later is that when they got to the chorus, the drums were much faster than on the later versions of the song. We have a live cut from 2002, as a matter of fact, so you can check for yourselves how it used to be played in the beginning. So it goes at a much faster tempo. It came back for the Frog Brigade tours of 2003. It was still there during the lone performances of the Frog Brigade in 2004 and 2005. It came back for the Fancy Band, and it was on pretty heavy rotation with that group all the way through 2006, 2007, then 2008 as well. It also became a live staple for the Fungi Band in 2009. It even got performed at the Hop Monk Tavern by Les Claypool and Friends. Then it came back for Duo the Twank with its acoustic arrangement. And then it got performed again by the Frog Brigade during their triumphant return the last year. It was not a staple. It didn't get performed at every single show, but I would say that it was definitely a showstopper, particularly because Les always cued Harry Waters to perform an incredible solo during the reprise of the track. So I would say those are those recent 2023 performances are definitely amongst my favorite live renditions so far. And then, of course, we got another performance by the return of Duo the Twank the last year at the Hop Monk Tavern as well. So that's quite an extensive live history. So this is definitely one of Les Claypool's solo staples.
Louis, did you catch all those? You've got a lot of work to do to master all the live renditions too.
Oh yeah, it's a never-ending trail of happiness.
I'm sure though, and I think we've probably asked you this before, but do you track down, do you listen to live renditions of the tunes to hear variations or clue into things you can't necessarily get from a studio version?
Yeah, absolutely. There's some things that are lost in the mix at times, audio-wise, from an album that tends to pop more in a live performance. I definitely listen back to a lot of Les Claypool's work to listen to, I wonder how they do this particular lick when it's live. Or what are they doing, like, when they break in John the Fisherman and or Nature Boy, like, okay, they do this wash sound, etc. There's all these little details that can happen live that might even be even cooler.
Yeah. It is a very dynamic song in terms of the live settings. Even the way that it's begun, it can go two different ways. Sometimes it started with percussion, and then they would just build up the percussion. First Paulo, then Mike D would come in, and eventually the bass would kick in. But there are also renditions where Les just goes straight into the opening bass line, and then they start building around it. So it's quite a dynamic song in a live setting. You never know how they're going to start it or how they're going to end it. Yeah. You have this very compact solo after the first chorus, which was performed originally by Enor. But in a live setting, they could also go wild with that section. There are some fancy band renditions where Gabby just goes nuts on the sitar. So it's pretty exciting to hear what they're going to do there. And then, of course, you have the false ending and you never know how they're going to reprise a track. The focus could be on the bass line, could be the saxophone. Last year it was Harry Waters. That's why it's such a fantastic song in a live setting. It gives each player an opportunity to display what they can do.
Well, that was during the jam days, right? So that was also like not too long after that. Of course, Tour de Fromage, and then they famously did a lot of improv sections, and they would explore song sections. And I would say that it's definitely that experience that really took Claypool to another level. But yeah, to kind of compliment more about what you're saying, how this song can lend itself to any musician who's participating to do their thing. And there's like this really cool pocket. It's really neat how they can really stretch out the structure.
And this one definitely, even upon the studio recording of Purple Onion, this one must have been a favorite because it received video treatment, music video treatment, that is. It also makes an appearance with a very brief making of, in
the 5 Gallons of Diesel DVD. But it's really cool because it's not just the making of the video. You also get a sneak peek at the making of the track.
Yes.
At Rancho Relaxo. And it's really fascinating to see all the craftsmanship going on behind the creation of this track, with Warren present in the studio and Skerrick recording his parts. I mean, imagine just having another peak like that for any other record. It would just be fascinating. What I really like about the music video is that it's got this whole do-it-yourself quality about it.
Oh, yeah.
But it's still fantastic. It doesn't look cheap. It doesn't look dated. It's still like a really clever music video nowadays. I quite enjoy how it got done, apparently on the spot, right? With a few dollars on the side, but It's fantastic.
They made that video for $8. It is really the only thing missing from that video, though, is lighting. It's so dark. As far as the lighting goes. And there's reasons for that, but it's pretty clear to those of you who are observant, like Frankie, that most of the video was shot at Rancho Relaxo. Whether it's the video camera footage of Warren Haynes playing the slide guitar mixed in with the film footage of Les standing on his diving board with the cards. And there's another, by the way, that's another Bob Dylan tribute of a sort.
Yeah,
if you remember
exactly.
Subterranean Homesick Blues.
I did catch that one back in the day.
Yeah, there's stock footage of all kinds of buzzards and carrion eaters, footage of the road, of course, the literal road that probably Les is writing about. So all these different pieces of footage intermixed and put out there as a video. I did notice, I don't know if you guys noticed, but aren't there like 4 or 5 frogs in the pool near the end of the video?
There are, but I was going to say that the dim illumination is totally on purpose. I think
it works, yeah.
The idea was to give the music video this kind of retro, vintage quality to it. It's like a music video from the 70s.
It does have that gritty taste to it. Louis, when you were watching it in 2002, that video must have been even more compressed, so it must have been a treat to watch. It
must have been a total blur
in that resolution, figuring out what the hell was going on.
I was like, "Oh my god, there's 2 pixels." Tell the missus. No, it looked cool. It was cool. To me, it had kind of a very particular stylistic sense of cinematography to it. It kind of reminded me of like 70s era, like Technicolor film, kind of hazy.
Exactly.
Hazy.
Exactly. That's precisely the vibe of the music video.
Because I'm a really big fan of cinematography and directors. Grew up on a lot of directors, and from what I understand, Claypool himself also has an appreciation for film directors, and he appreciates Stanley Kubrick, and I think he also appreciates like Paul Thomas Anderson, and on that note, I'm kind of wondering where the short, like, there should be some short indie movies coming out of Claypool, man. Like, I know he's got ideas.
Les did say that he always wanted to be a movie director. So getting to shoot some Primus music videos by himself and then some solo videos, I think it was his opportunity to explore that creative avenue.
Yeah, and what about Electric? I mean, he did Electric Apricot, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he directed that, and That was a fun movie. I really enjoyed that movie.
And then they replicated the same setting of the music video, and Les is even wearing the same outfit for a photo shoot with Jay Blakesberg. Yeah, with the pool that looks green in the background.
Yep.
And he's wearing the red one piece. And
Yep.
I mean, it's exactly the same as the music video. So that was pretty cool.
So you're getting a preview when you pull the CD out, and there it is right there. The red
green
onesie
pool.
standing on the diving board with the green pool in the background. Now, did we ever get clarification on that? Did the pool need to be shocked, or was it a product of lighting that it looked green?
I don't recall if we asked Jay specifically about the pool being green or not, but
that pool looks filthy in these photos and in that video. So
I would venture to say that the interior is painted green, right?
I would hope so, given those frogs that were in the water for the video. And I would assume that's Enor, Scarrick, Mike D. I'm guessing Warren Haynes didn't get into the water and wasn't requested to, but...
Setting aside the music video, which is fantastic, and focusing on the music, I would say that Buzzards of Green Hill is built around a really fantastic bass line that Les came up with. That is the centerpiece of the whole song. So now that we have Louis here, I'm very curious to inquire how easy or how difficult is it to play this particular bass line, Louis? Because I always remember that when I watched the music video back in the day, when Les dropped the cards and then he started playing the riff on the bass, to me it looked super hard. But you can tell us your perspective as a musician.
Like, they're all hooks. Like, all the bass riffs in the song are hooks. And they all have their own pocket and their own character. It's really cool. And then on top of that, it just grooves throughout. It's seamless, which is awesome. But regarding the musicianship required for this song, I would say that you would need an understanding of how to properly set up your bass guitar to have the proper action to come out of it. For me, I go with, like, my E string is at 106 gauge, and then I take it down to, like, 45 for the G, and then I have low action. And then you want to have it low enough, but you don't want it to rattle. You don't want it to, like, fret the first fret of your bass, and then it rattles on the second fret, you know what I mean? Like, you don't want to set it too low. So you got to know a little bit about setting up the proper action for the instrument and the proper string gauge. Yeah, so you'll definitely need a bit of an ear to understand that bit.
So the song is not for beginners, definitely.
A beginner can easily, like, cop the riffs. But when you want to take a little bit more professional, you'll realize that there's subtle accenting going on. He may hit the same note, but he approaches it in different ways. What I really love in this song is it's a bit of a highlight. It's like the secret sauce for a lot of bass players. Like, how do you make the same note sound different? And in this case, the turnaround lick. So the first part of the riff, you kind of have to, you strike it down, you pluck it, and the rest of it is just hammer-ons. So they sound a little bit more subdued, while the very first note is very cleanly, like, plucked. And then when you get to that D, the first D you hit, it's a subdued note, and then you got to tap it, thump on it. Again, the concept of, on the bass guitar, and what makes really cool bass licks happen is those tasteful ways of utilizing dynamics in your playing. Again, the concept of how do you make the same note sound different. Again, so we're going back to the original question. It's like, how does it stack up for a beginner player? You can easily, like, cop this song, and by cop I mean, like, you can kind of fake it and get the overall overall riffs going on. But when it comes to what's really happening there, it takes some tasteful playing, and it's going to require you to really pay attention to what's being said in the riffs.
You made a really great point at the beginning of your explanation, Louis, because the song is built around the same riff, but not really, right? Because it keeps changing throughout the song. He plays some slightly different notes. He changes things here and there. So yes, it's essentially the same riff, but there are portions of the track where he's doing all kinds of things, right? He's all over the place. So if you take in the song as a whole, the bass can get lost sometimes because there are portions of the track where it's a wall of sound, where you have all these instruments like saxophone and guitar just going crazy. But if you really focus on the bass on one of the live performances, it's like, oh my God, he's doing all kinds of crazy things on the bass. And then he goes back to the main riff, and it's all so incredibly cohesive, and it makes so much sense that it's really amazing to focus on less, particularly on this song for me.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and again, it's just that seamless playing. What I find fascinating about Claypool's bass writing and songwriting is he can take a few notes on a bass, but he'll know how to spread it, and what makes it even more interesting is it's not boring. It's like how do you just play a few notes and do this motif musically and still keep it interesting, even though you're just involving a few notes. And a lot of it has to do with his tasteful rhythmic positioning of when he starts his phrases, how he ends his phrases, and then again the concept of how to accent the same note differently, therefore resulting in a different sound, but it's the same note. A lot of his, and that's what he does sometimes. He'll take a riff and then he'll just accent it in a different way than the first way he did it, but it makes it sound completely different.
It makes sense. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying.
I'm gonna voice it in the lower string. So. But yeah, that's basically the riff. It's kind of like it's a 4-part progression, as I would call it, and I would call it a block, song-wise, of a section. It's like, okay, he does it 4 times, and what he does is he's hammering down from the 9th fret of the E string, and this is in standard tuning, and then he's hammering down from C sharp to D, and then he plays the famous tritone. So he'll do
excuse me, Louis. Josh, did you hear that envelope filter delight?
Yeah, I heard it.
It's fabulous.
You got a nice envelope filter there, Louis.
Oh, thanks. Not all the guys tell me that,
You must have to tune your ear differently when he's playing the envelope filter if you're trying to suss out what he's up to.
Yeah, you do need to get a little bit familiar with the envelope filter because it is very dynamic sensitive or velocity sensitive. So if you don't strike the note hard enough, you're going to get a different type of sound from that note. But it's still the same note. It'll sound buried. Like, for example...
So the envelope filter is a fickle queen.
Yes, it is such a queen. I would say with envelope filters to just keep an eye on your bass, your EQ settings, your graphic EQ or whatever it is, because the envelope filter will almost boost your low end frequencies a bit more so, and it can make it sound a little too bottom heavy. So that's something to look out for. And you also want to make sure that your high end isn't too high, because basically the envelope filter kind of just makes everything brighter. Like the low end's really low and the high end's extra high. So you kind of have to learn how to play within that context dynamic wise when you're hitting the notes. Because you may hit that one note, but if you don't hit it properly, it's going to sound like a different note because of the effect. Yeah, so that's kind of the nature of the beast with that one. And regarding the C sharp, the C sharp to the D note, it starts it off. One of the other things I like to point out about this riff, which is a signature thing about Les Claypool, recently I started realizing that, James Hetfield of Metallica is famous for doing downstroke picking or down picking, which gives that extra chunky Metallica sound to their riffs. And same goes for Les Claypool. When he doesn't a lot, he'll always do flat thumb down. He'll never do double plucking on a bunch of riffs that you think he would double pluck on. But in order to keep that bottom end chunk, he's always down thumbing when he's doing the thumping. For the most part, in order to keep that consistent low-end chunky sound, he's doing just a downward strike versus downward pluck up with the tip of your thumbnail in order to make up for all those notes he's playing. Example, My Name is Mud. He's playing six notes in a group in the space of one quarter note, which is a sextuplet. Yeah. But he's doing that whole riff, My Name is Mud, flat thumb style. He's not striking through that string and then plucking outward with the tip of his thumb. He's doing all of that just down strikes with his thumb, and that's what I like about this riff as well, because it does that same thing. Because that's all downstroke. Yeah. And that's another one too. Is he'll do these triplet mutes a lot, like his famous triplets. And this riff is really great because it demonstrates those two approaches that Claypool usually utilizes for his riff playing, which is the down strike of his thumb, and then he does the triplet. Yeah, that riff is that's what it kind of showcases, his approach, and then you'll find the approach to the way he plays this relatively small riff, this cool groove, applied to a lot of his writing.
Louis, could you please, before you put your bass away, could you demonstrate what Les is doing after the second chorus, where he's laying the foundation for the guitar and the saxophone to perform their solos? It's a variation of the main riff, but it's quite different.
That ascending riff.
Exactly, the ascending riff.
Yeah. Precisely.
Most of this song, by the way, is in the key of C major, for all those music geeks out there. And the riff is kind of played mainly in almost like a pentatonic shape form. C, F, G, high C, high G. And then the last one up here, they climb up to. And that's a high F. And that's a riff variation. And then the turnaround riff is. To your high D. And this is one of those riffs that I was discussing earlier about regarding how you accent it. So he just does like the first main pluck of the note, which is on the C. And the rest of it is just hammer-ons with no accents applied from your other hand. So. Sorry, I might be trailing off here. But yeah, it all fits within the framework of the key of C major for the most part, except the one note that's kind of out of it from the key of C major would be that hammer-on from C sharp, and then this tritone, which is a G sharp, so not diatonic notes. But obviously those stick out whenever he throw those out there.
All these parts that you've modeled are certainly the basis, which is obviously not a surprise for the tune. But to hear you play that in isolation, and then to say sample the studio track, we can certainly hear how Skerrick and Enor and Mike and Warren were all building off of those bass licks that Les had put together and arranged, with different repetitions and so on. So I'm just going to play a portion of Buzzards, the studio track, so we can hear it all coming together now that you've set the foundation for us. By the way, right before that Enor solo, that is probably my favorite fill. That's very bubbly. That little bass fill there. But just to play that little part, we get the tail end of Warren soloing and then transitioning into Enor, but you're hearing all these different pieces. And even just that, the first riff that you, or the first lick that you modeled for us, what sounds simple, they add the hey, they've got the tambourine, they've got that tempo moving, and so it's in isolation, it sounds like a guy goofing around on his bass guitar, but now we're actually putting a tune together, and he's just in that one part, it seems like he had it fully realized that this is going to sound like a backcountry good old time. And it really does to me. It's just those are the kind of leaps that true musicians can make. He brought in people to fill it in, but he already had a vision, because when we look at that making of the studio track video, you see him playing or modeling the licks for Skerrick, who's doubling them or harmonizing, doing a whole bunch of different stuff, but they're conceptualizing it and putting it together.
That's what makes this song truly special. I mean, on records like Hybel with the Devil, we know that Les put together by himself some of the songs, and he played every instrument. But then you have something like Buzzards of Green Hill, where he had a vision, and he knew exactly which player he wanted for the song. And as amazing as the live renditions are, what makes the studio cut unique is that it's got Warren on it, and nobody is going to play that guitar part like he did. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, the next greatest thing would be, in my opinion, the Jam Crew's 2005 performance with Jimmy Herring. I'm sure you guys recall that from the 5 Gallons of Diesel DVD.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I remember that.
Oh, yeah.
He was wearing he was doing an Elvis thing, I think, at the time.
Yeah, he was wearing the Elvis mask, and they're playing Buzzards. Jimmy plays an incredible guitar solo, and then Liz wants to share a little bit of an anecdote regarding the song and what goes on where he lives. And he's trying to get Jimmy's attention, but he just goes to the side of the stage and he starts talking to someone. And it's really funny because Les starts saying, Jimmy, Jimmy.
I forgot about that. Yeah, this tune has a lot going for it, and it's I will say the chorus itself, the Johnny Come Lately chorus, it's a down home chicken picking good time or something like that. It's backwoods hick Claypool coming out in spades here. But that chorus, which the bass once again is the foundation, is so sing-songy and it's so damn catchy. But I don't know what it is that makes this one so catchy, because it, for all intents and purposes, it shouldn't be at all. I don't know if you've got any insight there.
Melody. It's always melody. I think the icing on the cake of this song is the vocal melody.
Yeah.
It's very hooky. It's seamless with the riffs. I mean, it just pulls you in already. You're already feeling where he's going before he gets there almost.
And we get that first iteration very quickly into the tune, and of course it comes back around many a time, given that it is a hook, contains really great lyrics to go with a really cool melody. And then to build on that, Enor is providing some vocal harmony. They're building kind of I've said this a bunch of times because the album's Purple Onion, but they're peeling back the layers, or putting on more layers, right? So this one, I think he took a lot of care with, and it kind of comes through on that making up video as well.
I do have a question for you guys in terms of the instrumentation. In the live performances, I would say that the hook are the drums. I mean, well, of course, the bass line is the hook, but also the drums, because when they perform the song live, you get percussion, but then for the chorus, that's where whomever is playing, could be Paul Abaldi, could be Jay Lane, the chorus is where they unleash the snare, and it gives another dimension to the track, right? It becomes a lot more upbeat and dramatic. But in the studio version, I kind of never, I mean, I like it. I like what it sounds like, but I've never been able to figure out what's going on with the percussion or the drums in the studio recording, because at times it's like they're not even there. It's kind of hard to even listen to the snare in the studio version, right?
I don't even think there is one. I
mean, in the studio cut, it's like the song is just bouncing around through the bass line, but there are no real drums there, right?
Right. There's tabla, tabla and tambourine, and that's about it.
Very backwoods vibe.
Yeah. And as you said, Frankie, and I had forgotten about that variation. So last summer on the Fraud Brigade tour, when Paolo came in and was playing that rock beat with that chorus, I was taken aback, because that's much more powerful, right? It's a much larger sound. Really rounded out that track and gave it much more life in that live setting. And so that's another thing to discuss. And Louis, you have performed live all kinds of material throughout your career. So to me, that taking that next step and going, okay, how can we really enhance this live so it gets people moving or really shakes the room or something like that? I think there's a lot of space in the studio track of Buzzards for that, and they certainly came through on that Promise live.
Going back to Les Claypool's ventures in the jam band scene and how to like take liberties in the pockets or certain sections of songs and how to stretch them out, and how that really helped him grow overall as a musician, I think would be fair to say. With this song, I can only imagine where they kept taking certain sections, or they took liberties with certain parts. Mm-hmm. I mean, it must have been so interesting and to witness live. And it never dawned on me. Like when Frankie brought up the point, it's like, do you hear any clear, straightforward drumming going on during Buzzards of Green Hill? I'm like, no, actually, now that I think of it, I don't. It's kind of like the first time I heard Stairway to Heaven, and I was like, oh wait, the drums just came in at the 5-minute mark. I forgot there was no drums going on here. But no, I mean, of course, with Buzzards, there's like percussion. But wow, now I gotta check out like a drummer version of Buzzards. That's so cool.
Oh, we got plenty for you today with the live.
Hey!
Don't worry, yeah, you're getting your share. Before heading into the lyric territory, I just wanted to ask one more question to you guys. Can you draw a parallel between Buzzards of Green Hill and My Name is Moth?
I'm drawing blanks.
Well, you know how when you listen to the studio version of My Name is Moth, the intro is just bass and there are no vocals. But since a few years now, anytime they do My Name is Moth live, Les always does that vocal interjection before they begin the song, right?
May I model it?
Please do.
Huh!
Exactly. So, same thing happened with Buzzards of Green Hill when they perform it live. That is the cue that Les provides. So the drums kick in and they go into the upbeat part. The cool thing is that he did record it for the studio version of Do the Twang. You'll get a taste of it in the live cuts anyway.
Louis, thank you, by the way, for the insights on the
much appreciated, Louis. That was
this track.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome to stay, of course.
Now, if we take a look at the lyrics, Josh, Johnny Come Lately, I understand that in the English language, Johnny could be used for your average random person, right? Like a John Doe.
It could be. And to further that, Johnny Come Lately is a cultural idiom. I've often heard it used to describe somebody who shows up just in time to where they don't have to do any of the work, but they benefit from the work everybody else did. So that's another way I've heard Johnny Come Lately used. But generally, I think it's used for somebody who has just recently moved to a new area. And I think that stands to reason here in that first stanza, Frankie, with Johnny Come Lately all through the county. So there's all these people moving to the county. They come from the city out to Green Hill. So all these city folk are coming out, driving way too fast and killing all kinds of animals.
Hence the Buzzards of Green Hill growing fat.
Exactly. So it all comes together.
Now the tongue twister in the first verse is just crazy. Little fussy wussy wasn't fussy, was he? I mean, that's nuts.
Now, is that one you had heard before, Frankie?
To be honest with you, I thought Les came up with that.
That is not an original lyric of his. That I remember that from when I was a little kid. I don't know how far back Fuzzy Wuzzy goes, but that is a common tongue twistery type thing that you mess with kids with to see if they can say it fast. Louis, did you hear that one when you were a kid? The Fuzzy Wuzzy?
Yeah, I sure did. I haven't. Yeah, where did that come from?
I didn't do the legwork to find out its origins, but all I know is generations of kids know that one.
There's a pretty interesting contrast in the song, lyric-wise, because at the beginning, Les is just talking about this poor cat, getting run over by the vehicle.
Yep.
But it's a cautionary tale because nobody did anything about the people speeding. So in the second verse, that's where the real tragedy happens, right?
Oh, this is mother and son cold dead, right?
Yeah. And then the little piggy thing, it always reminds me instantly of green jelly.
The three little pigs. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he's really dipping into nursery rhyme and these phrases that have just been passed down through the generations that at this point nobody really knows their origin. So this little piggy is another thing that parents would do to their small children by grabbing their toes and saying, this little piggy went to market, this little piggy something, I forget them all now. Les does a little play on it with, this little piggy won't cast a stone, this little piggy won't pick a bone. Of course, casting a stone means to shame somebody or accuse somebody of something or shame somebody for something, and then picking a bone is getting in an argument or otherwise airing your grievances with someone. Really interesting turns of phrase here, and that combo of the little piggies and different phrases than from the traditional wiggling a little baby's toes. There's people that take umbrage with the behavior of drivers on Green Hill Road. And then right prior to that, Frankie, John Donovan was the one who killed people while he was driving drunk. He posts his bail and he goes home, sleeps in his own bed.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing the justice system also not doing what it is purported to do. And it's out in the country. And so that reminds me of kind of the Good Old Boy network, where possibly the sheriff's deputy that responded to this probably knew John Donovan and just said, well, all right, let's go down to the station and do what we need to do, but all right, go home. Maybe they'll squash it and he won't face anything as a result of his actions. There was an old Bill Hicks bit about drunk drivers, and I can't remember the whole thing, but there were the cops were obviously didn't really care, and they're just like, nope, nothing to see here, just another drunk person behind the wheel of an automobile. You go have fun, son. And that was kind of the attitude for a long time around drunk driving before some reforms. But clearly, out on Green Hill Road, it's a problem.
It's what's hilarious. I got to touch on that a little bit. Is there's video of interviewing townspeople when they changed the laws about drunk driving. Like I guess it was in the late 70s and early 80s. Like what's like it was a total this is America. I'm gonna drink my beer and I'm gonna drive. Like, what do you mean I can't do these things? Do it all the time. And then one of them was a lady who had like her baby in her arms with like a bottle in the car open, and it was ridiculous. But yeah, it was a total different mindset. The one thing I wanted to talk, the Buzzards of Green Hill made me think of Tom Waits. He was on David Letterman a long time ago. I think he was on a promotional campaign for, I think, Real Gone. And he was talking about his son, because they didn't have a television, and he was asking his son what he was doing out there with his friend out in the open by the road. And he said, we're watching TV. And it's like, what do you mean you're watching TV? We shot the TV. And he's like, we're the turkey vultures. So they were all... Yeah. Like Tom Waits' kids would watch vultures eating roadkill off of the highway, and I'm wondering if there's any kind of like Tom Waits correlation there with the Buzzards of Green Hill, because I know that they kind of relatively live in proximity.
Yeah, so Tom would be familiar with that area, of course, and those are some of the same carrion eaters that Les is singing about.
That's interesting that you pointed that out, because it reminds me of, I can make a parallel with primates and monkeys, because occasionally people will look at a photograph or a video of a mandrill and they will refer to it as a baboon. And they are two completely different animals. What Les showed on the Buzzards of Green Hill video is footage of a turkey vulture in action. And colloquially, vultures are referred to as buzzards, but if we want to be very technical and specific, buzzards are actually a family of hawks.
Hey,
Well,
the more you know.
I suppose that's a common glossing over.
But, Les was just making the song work phonetically. I mean, he went for a literary resource because Vultures of Green Hill just doesn't roll off the tongue quite the same, right?
I don't think a buzzard is going to pass up a nice, fresh, dead raccoon either.
Yeah. Have you ever been in the proximity of a vulture, Josh?
I have. They are humongous.
They're incredibly imposing animals. I mean, and if they stretch out their wings, it's just insane. They are incredibly intimidating.
To draw another parallel, it makes me think of the California condor, which is another carrion eater, which of course Les has sung about. When I think it was the Yurok tribe released some California condors into the wild just a year or two ago. We were finally being reintroduced to the California coast. So there's a lot of connections that I suppose one could make.
How about we sample those magnificent live cuts, Josh?
How about this? I'll make you a deal, Frankie. We'll do Primates Takes, and then we'll sample some live cuts.
Right on. Yeah.
Look at us wheeling and dealing, compromising.
Yeah.
And as
just making concessions all over the place.
I would like to remind everyone that when you compromise, nobody's happy. Time for Primates Takes. If you would like your take read right here on the podcast, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/Primus Tracks. One of the universal features there is at any level of support, I post a thread about the track that's up for discussion. You reply to it in a thoughtful way. I'll read it right here. For example, our Primatrons' takes on Buzzards of Green Hill are as follows. Eric in Australia said this... Wow, I'm really screwing up a lot today. Eric in Australia says the guitar work on this track is amazing, with Warren Haynes bringing his particular magic, which is incomparable. And I should mention that incomparable is the absolute right term for the guitar playing of Warren Haynes. This one's interesting. Edwin Allen Richards IV says, this music video was my introduction to Claypool's music 20 years ago when I was 14. It played on a local access TV channel in Phoenix, Arizona that only showed weird and obscure music videos with zero commercial interruptions in the middle of the night. This song blew my fragile little mind wide open, and I was forever changed. I love this song and will always think of it fondly for the tremendous impact it had on my life. Nick in the Netherlands says, the song that made me fall in love with the envelope filter. It's a super fun song when played live. It's catchy, it's funky, easily in my top 3 Claypool songs outside of Primus. Cool. Remember that was Nick in the Netherlands. I was reading his words. The subtext there, Frankie, is I don't like the envelope filter as much as him. See? I'm sorry. And in a similar vein, Simon Altman says, how can you not love the envelope filter in Buzzards of Green Hill? My favorite song off the album and a track that is amazing live whenever it is played.
Thank you, Simon.
Oh, man. Everybody's buttering you up, Frankie.
Did Brooks break down in 20 seconds what took us an hour and a half to do?
Brooks breaks it down as follows. I've never heard a song about vehicular manslaughter that was more fun than this one.
Yeah, let's just call it a day, Josh. Let's just quit.
Good night, everybody! A couple other ones here. Ryan Rishon says Warren Haynes on guitar, unusual percussion, envelope filters, Skerrick on Barry sax, and group vocals make this song stand out amongst the entire Claypool catalog. I wish this was the second track. I assume he means the second track on the record. Wemola17 says all-time epic. My first fancy show opened with this, and the Frog Show last October the same. This is the Claypool version of Tweakers. Great show starter. And I'll end on Anthony Del Prete, who simply says, yeehaw! So there you go. There's the Primates Takes. Thank you all so much. And Anthony, thank you for making me say yeehaw. You ready for those live cuts?
Let's see what you guys think about this little sample of what Buzzards can do in a live setting.
Looks like our first live cut is from Somerset, Wisconsin, 2002. We're going to hear some drums. As promised, Frankie always delivers. Oh, man.
Check out how in the early renditions of the song, the tempo was much faster. It's like they're just trying to get done with the track.
They are ripping through it, but I really like that drum pattern when the kit comes in. Louis, what are you hearing in that one?
I'm hearing some extra notes in the bass line. I'm hearing, definitely way more up-tempo. And, that's cool, hearing what the drummer's coming up with. I mean, they got to be kind of like inventing that stuff every time they throw that one up on stage.
Yeah. It's 2002, Frankie. Do we know the drummer on that one?
I didn't hear enough mouth harp. I think I'm going to, they want more cowbell. I kind of want more mouth harp.
That was, yes, conspicuously absent from that cut.
These 2002 performances featured Fish Fisher on drums.
He sounded great. I love that pattern.
Fish Fisher.
Our next live cut is from Frankie's Frog Brigade Live Selections box set that he fictitiously released to document the Frog Brigade. So I don't have any dates or locations on this one, but we're going to hear a few portions of Buzzards, starting with the chorus. If somebody said to me, hey, why don't you play the slide guitar solo because Warren's not here, I would be scared.
Yeah.
Yikes. Somebody had to step up. I imagine that was Enor. That's so that drum pattern is more along the lines of what Paolo was playing.
It is, yeah. But by this point, the track had settled down, and that's kind of what they would be doing down the line.
Yeah. Pretty straightforward. Boy, I'm really going back to that Fish Fisher drum pattern. I like that one a lot. Probably because I hadn't heard it before. Let's hear the bridge. Yeah. Wow, they really make it move in this one. Drums. Man, I like that groove. Louis, what are you hearing in that one?
Way more rhythmic playing. I hear more pocket going on. I like this version. Yeah, because I'm feeling the overall pulse more, and the groove is grooving.
It really is. Our third Buzzards live cut is from the Fancy Band in 2006. We're going to hear a bunch of different parts, including the intro. Mikey. So this one's pulsing right away. This one's pretty cool. All right, now, Louis, I got to ask you, as a resident bass expert, do you like that pulsing start that allows the bass to make a grand entrance, or would you rather the bass started this track?
I'm feeling this intro groove they got going on. It's the rhythm is strong, but the what's being played is very subdued. You can feel the pulse, but it's almost a hush. It provides a lot of cool tension, and it sounds like there's a djembe going on there, or some tablas or something.
Tablas, I believe. Yeah.
Tabla indeed.
Yeah. I think that's accenting very nicely. Yeah, it's really cool. I dig it.
Right on. Let's hear how they take on that chorus. That didn't get past me, Frankie. I heard it. Yeah. That vocal delivery in the chorus was much more staccato than we hear on the record, and definitely more than those other two live cuts. And
it might be because Gabby is providing backing vocals.
Yeah, so they were doing something interesting with that there. That Buzzards of Green Hill. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
And then the sitar playing that sax line.
I saw them during that tour. I saw the Fancy Band back in 06. And,
oh, yeah.
And I really missed the onstage performance chemistry between Gabby Lala and Les Claypool. They had such a cool...
It was fantastic.
Yeah, such a cool vibe they both had, like, on stage. It was really cool to see that. It was a cool
and we learned from Gabby when she was here on the show that they rehearsed their asses off on that tour.
Yes,
really?
They were prepared and finely tuned. For that one.
Not Les. I mean, Les would just go out and do stuff, but the rest of the band, they were rehearsing like crazy every night.
I remember the word she used was disciplined. There was a disciplined tour. Comes through whenever we hear those live cuts from that era. They sound.
I guess they had to live up to their name. It was the Fancy Band.
Mighty fancy. Speaking of, how about Ski Rack? There you go, Ski Rack. Our last live cut is from Everglades National Park.
Langerado
Music Festival, 2008. Frankie's first time code is labeled Envelope Filter Delight.
You know what's coming.
Oh, boy.
I'll be back in about 5 minutes. You guys have fun. Ooh, that's a little crunchy. Louis, what do you think he's doing there to get that crunchiness under that envelope filter?
He threw in a little dirt into his tone. I think he definitely gave it a little bit of a gain push.
Okay.
A little bit of a distortion. He might have like a rat distortion going on, like just a touch of it. Obviously, you can hear that, and it sounds like he kind of tweaked the settings of the envelope filter a little bit more so to be more bottom end heavy. Super cool sound.
Let's hear the reprise on this one.
me see.
That sounded pretty powerful from the bass there.
He was accenting. That section would be like, I think on record he's playing that, but here it sounds like he's just varying it up a little bit. More straightforward, more like downbeat heavy, and plus he's got that gnarly like bass tone going on. It just sounds way more heavy.
That's a nice sound.
And you know what is the greatest thing about Langerado?
What's that?
The bass sounded exactly like that during the entire set.
Oh, he had that dirt on it the whole time.
It was permanent, and it's glorious.
Maybe it was the humidity of being in the Everglades that messed with his electronics. Let's wrap up these live cuts with more Skerrick. Yeah, I was really listening mostly to the dirty bass, but Skerrick was laying it down too. Very nice selections there, Frankie.
Thanks. Brilliant tune. Buzzards of Green Hill.
I should say this, Buzzards of Green Hill, fly away, because you've been tracked. Next time, Frankie, bring your floss and your stories of the days of yore. As you can tell, we're long in the tooth. Louis, thank you so much for joining us after a long time away to talk about Buzzards of Green Hill, buddy.
Much appreciated, Louis.
Oh, yeah. Always a pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Again, Louis, you are available on social media at LA Primus Tribute. You do have your Primus Tribute band going on. Yes. I think more recently you've been working with your Deftones band?
Yeah, I've been working with the Deftones band, a Deftones type of time, because the band's very in demand, playing all over Southern California. We're going to play with OTEP next weekend.
Wow.
That's crazy.
And then, with the Primus tribute band, I mean, I always feel a little bit funny saying tribute. I prefer like playing covers, because for me it's more like I do it because it's fun, and the other guys in the band, we do it because we just really enjoy the material and it challenges us, and it's kind of why we're really doing it. It's a lot of fun, and we want to do the material as best as we can. We're going to be returning to Alex's Bar, which is a really great like open secret of a venue in Long Beach, California.
Ooh. Where
there's a lot of industry level talent that goes through there and performs low key, like the Crystal Method or Agent Orange. And a bunch of other like well-to-do bands that go through there. So we're returning to the stage there on June 9th. We're going to be playing with the Deftones cover group Engine's Drone, and then Smashing Pumpkins band.
You might have to change that Instagram name to LA Primus Cover.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm going to have to do that. I didn't think about that until we just talked.
Thanks again, Louis, for taking the time. Primates, primatrons, buzzards, take care of yourselves. Later days.
With a mace.
Bye.
The Buzzards of Green Hill grow down road.